What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to the show. This is my ultimate cottage pie with a few little secret ingredients, so pay attention. I won't be saying them more than once. So potatoes in a pan with some salt, get it on a nice simmering, gentle, kind of bubbling away heat, and let that just do its thing. In the meantime, what we're going to do is get some butternut squash. It's just a halved one, which you can just buy already like that. Scoop out the seeds, and then in that little kind of well there, that little get hole, we're going to put in 3 cloves of garlic, and what we're going to do is get some olive oil and fill up that little kind of well. You want it to kind of pretty much cover the garlic, and then it's going to all mix through once it's roasted. So what we'll do is we'll fill up that with oil, and then we'll do some salt and pepper. We'll drizzle a bit on top and just rough that in with our hands, just so it's all nicely covered. And then, salt and pepper. And then we're going to have that on about 180 degrees centigrade in the oven for about an hour. And then that's just going to slowly roast away. You can kind of just do this right now and just kind of forget about it, and it'll be ready about right for when we get to that stage later on. So this is going to be a nice little in-between layer in the middle of the cottage pie, and it goes really nicely with it. It adds like a bit of sweetness, which is just perfect. So next we're just going to prepare some veg. So I'm just sort of preparing some carrots just into nice kind of bite-sized chunks. How you want to cut them is up to you. I mean, I do it like this, as you can see. We'll do probably about half an onion as well, just finely diced. Pan on, medium heat, get that on there, get the carrots and the onions all kind of finely diced like that, chuck them in the pan, bit of salt, bit of pepper, and just let that slowly cook down for about 5 or 6 minutes just to sweat them down. And once they start to go a bit translucent and the colour kind of looks like that, that's about right. I just push that to one side and start frying off the beef. Now, if you're vegan or vegetarian, use your favourite kind of beef substitute, like mince substitute at this point. And then obviously anywhere where I use butter, use a substitute for that. But apart from that, we're pretty much vegan and veggie friendly. So obviously don't use beef at this point, use your Beyond Meat or something like that. So we're just going to fry that off in batches, a little pinch of salt, a little bit of pepper. Don't overdo the salt, because the stocks and stuff we're going to use do have quite a bit of salt in them, so you do have to be careful of that. And then at this point, you might want to turn the heat up and just let this kind of fry off and cook down. So what I'm doing there, that's a beef oxo cube, but you can use an equivalent vegan, vegetarian friendly version which doesn't actually have any kind of meat stuff in it. I believe Oxo does, so don't use that if you're vegan or veggie. That's like a Masao chicken stock, which is vegan and veggie friendly, so that's about 1.5 litres. Add water, mix it up, make sure everything's covered like that. Like I said, it's about 1.5 litres-ish, so once that mix just nicely covered, give it a little stir around, then we're probably just going to pop a lid on it. I'm going to put that onto another hob and just let that gently simmer away while we do this next stage. So what we're going to do now is cook off the zucchinis or the courgettes and the mushrooms. So again, slice them, dice them into bite-sized chunks, however you want to cook them. You can add other veggies here as well if you want to. So it's just what I kind of had. So this is a really good just filler for what you've got in the fridge. So we're going to get the courgettes on kind of a medium to high heat this time. Bit of salt, bit of pepper. Give them a toss. Let them sit there for about 5 or 6 minutes just to get some colour on one side. I tend to then prep the mushrooms while that's doing that. So I'm just halving them, then give that a little toss around. Then we're going to just finish off prepping the mushrooms. So I kind of slice in half, then half again, and then cross through the other way into little diced kind of bite-sized chunks. You can have them reasonably sized because they will shrink down when they cook. And then we're just going to add that straight into that pan. Add in a bit more pepper, because black pepper and mushrooms is just perfect. Then once that cooked down for a couple more minutes, finely dice some garlic. Get that nice and finely diced as well. So just run your knife through it a few times, and then add a knob of butter. Obviously, for the vegans and veggies out there, you can use a kind of butter substitute. The Nutlex is pretty good for this. So give that a toss around, give that another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're going to pop that into the cottage pie mixture. So I've just brought that from the other hob, and then we're just going to pop that in. So I do this because it just gets more flavour out of the mushrooms and the zucchinis. So rather than just chucking it into that mixture before you cook them, it just gives you a bit more depth of flavour. So that can just chill out. What I've done there is I've just put in about 300 ml of pre-made gravy mixture. I just use a Bisto. It's more of a nostalgic thing for me. I just like the flavours. So some people might frown upon that, but I think it works great. So and that just helps thicken it and makes it all unctuous and nice. And it's just so good. And then I'm adding in some peas because I had them in the freezer. So if you have some, chuck them in. They're really good. So it just adds a little kind of pop of sweetness in there. And that just gently simmers and bubbles away. So once we're at that point, that's had about it's been about an hour from this point, so that butternut squash is perfect. As you can see there, it's got a nice bit of like crispiness on top. The inside's nice and soft and like perfectly cooked. So we're just going to gradually be careful because it's really hot. So we're just going to scoop that out. And then once we've done that, we're going to get those 3 cloves of garlic, squish them with a fork. Watch out because they will pop and squeeze juices everywhere like that, and it will go all over your camera. So be careful about that. It is a pain in the ass to clean. The garlic goes in there, a bit more pepper, a little grated parmesan. Obviously, if you're the veggies or vegans, you don't necessarily need to do that if you don't eat cheese. So it's just like a nice little extra. Give that a good mush up and a mix up, and that's perfect. In the meantime, let's get the mash going. So that's all been nicely cooked. That's just been gently simmering away really low. So we're just going to add salt, pepper, milk, bit of butter. Again, if you're vegan, use a butter alternative, and then give that a good mash up. Now make sure you do this for a good few minutes because you want to get all the lumps out and make sure it's all nice and smooth, as you can see there. Once you've got all the big chunks nicely mashed up, get a spoon, give it a good whisk up, and then this is the next bit. So obviously this isn't for the vegans or the veggies, but this is duck fat, so about a teaspoon of that. Get it in there, get it mixed up so it all melts through and really nicely mixed up. It will kind of loosen it all up a little bit as well, so it'll make it easier to spread on top. And it makes the top go super nice and crispy like a proper duck fat roast potato. It's so good. So get your oven dish of choice. I've got one of these Pyrex things. I just really, really like them. Get a first layer in about a third of the way up, and then we're going to put in our butternut squash mixture. So just gradually go around the edges and then thin it out with a spoon or a fork or a spatula or whatever you've got, and just get that all nicely in there. It doesn't have to completely seal everything in because it's going to all just mush up anyway, but get it kind of like this if you can. Just nicely leveled out, and then we're going to put in the top layer. So you can see the kind of how liquid that mixture is. That's where we want it to be. We don't want it any thicker than that because it will thicken once it cooks in the oven. So get that nicely on there, nicely spread out and even, about 1 centimetre from the top. And then we're going to do the mash. So first thing to do is go around the edges like this, so with the spatula or a spoon or whatever, and follow this kind of technique, because what that does is that seals all the edges in, and that means the mixture won't escape when it cooks. And it probably will try and escape a bit, but this just kind of minimizes that. So, and then you can obviously clear off the edges as I'm doing there once you've got that edge all in. It just means that it doesn't burn on the edges of that the Pyrex, because it will be a pain in the ass to clean. So obviously if you're not washing up, that's not your problem. But and then once you've done that, just gradually work your way into the middle, give it a little smooth down so it's all sealed in nicely, and then with a fork just kind of really lightly scrape the edges and fluff up and make these little peaks and stuff like that, because those bits are going to get super crispy in the oven. So you can just rough it up and get it looking something like that. That's about perfect. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pop it in the oven once you put in a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Obviously for the vegans, don't do this part. And then we're going to put that in the oven, 180 degrees centigrade, roughly speaking, for a fan oven, a little bit higher if it's not a fan oven. And we're going to have that in the oven for around 45 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes, depends on your oven. And, you just keep an eye on it until it goes nice and crisp and golden into something basically like that. And how good does that look? Super amazing. Now, the best thing to do is leave it for about 10 or 15 minutes before you serve it, because it will retain its heat, so don't worry about that. But it will just make it a little bit easier to spoon out and also to eat when it comes to serving it, because it will be hotter than the sun inside it. So just be really careful, okay? So yeah, plate it up. It's a bit tricky to scoop it out neatly, but, with a bit of practice, you get there. And then serve it with your veg of choice. I love it with some broccolini or normal broccoli, but whatever you've got is fine. And then there's a bit more of that extra gravy that I made earlier. So that's just a standard Bisto gravy, but it's just super nostalgic flavours for me. So there you go. Super awesome cottage pie mixture. I hope you liked it. There's some more videos here. Check them out. Like, comment and subscribe, and we'll be back with another video really soon. Cheers, everyone.